This is every Soviet vehicle used in World War II, from the steel workhorses that dragged the Red Army across continents to the monstrous heavy tanks that smashed through cities. Machines built in haste, built in fear, built in fury. Some brilliant, some bizarre, all forged for a single purpose. First up, the Soviet medium tanks. T-34/76, the tank that changed the war. Before the Germans even knew what they were facing, the T-34/76 hit the battlefield with sloped armor, a rugged engine, and a production philosophy so simple it was almost poetic. It was ugly, rough, and relentless. The Soviets built thousands of them, running assembly lines that kept moving even while bombs fell overhead. T-34/85, the mechanical rebirth in the middle of chaos. When the Wehrmacht unleashed Tigers and Panthers, the USSR answered by scaling up the caliber. The new turret, wider, taller, more commanding, wasn't about looks. It finally gave Soviet tank commanders something they rarely had: vision and control. A mechanical rebirth forged under pressure. T-28, a survivor from another era. 3 turrets, pre-war lines, a clumsy giant wandering among modern machines. But in early 1941, it still had a purpose: smashing urban barricades like a moving battering ram instead of dueling panzers in open fields. T-34 T-34 flamethrower variant, industrial mutation at its finest. The USSR loved taking what already worked and turning it into something more violent. This T-34 didn't just fight, it burned fortifications, trenches, and enemy morale within a short, devastating radius. Across the vast Eastern Front, these medium tanks carved, fire after fire, the path to Berlin. Not through perfection, but through the mechanical stubbornness of machines that simply refused to stop. Heavy tanks, machines that advanced as if war itself had weight, and they were simply pushing everything else out of the way. KV-1, a stubborn colossus. In 1941, German crews reported their shells ricocheting off it like stones hitting a ship's hull. Slow, blind, and heavy, but a metal wall that early German columns simply couldn't circumvent. K-52, a glorious aberration. A massive turret, a 152mm gun, and the operational grace of a powered refrigerator. But when it fired, trenches, bunkers, and enemy morale turned to dust. One shot was often enough to decide who controlled the ground. K-585, the emergency response. With the next heavy tank still in development, the USSR mounted a larger gun onto the aging KV platform. It was an interim solution, crude, fast, necessary, until something more refined arrived. IS-2, the Soviet apex of concentrated power, a 122mm cannon capable of tearing open German turrets under pressure. It wasn't meant for long duels. It advanced, fired, broke fortified positions, and opened corridors for the infantry like a modern battering ram. IS-1/prototypes, early attempts at reinvention. First efforts to reshape Soviet heavy tank doctrine. They never achieved the fame of the IS-2, but they paved the engineering path for the final phase of the war. If medium tanks won through numbers, heavy tanks won through impact. Each advance a mechanical earthquake announcing the German defense's impending collapse. Tank destroyers, machines built with a simple, brutal mission: destroy the thing the enemy trusted most. Su-76, the stubborn little shooter. Light, cheap, loud, so loud it earned the nickname Suka, the nuisance. But its mobility and ease of production allowed it to saturate the front. Where infantry needed support, an Su-76 appeared, spitting rounds quickly and relentlessly. Su-85, the immediate answer to modern panzers. Armed with an 85mm gun, it finally offered the ability to punch through German medium armor at reasonable distances. Low, discreet, lethal, a predator that hunted from afar. Su-100, one of the most efficient tank destroyers of the entire war, equipped with a 100mm gun with astonishing penetration, it could turn a confrontation before the enemy even realized where the shot came from. German commanders often reported that when an Su-100 showed up, no one breathed easy. Su-57, Lend-Lease/Soviet M3 half-track. Improvised, fast, light. a 57mm anti-tank gun mounted on top of a half-track. Anything but elegant, but effective as an ambush weapon. These vehicles weren't built to inspire, they were built to interrupt. They turned the German advance into hesitation. And on the Eastern Front, hesitation was the beginning of the end. Reconnaissance vehicles, fast, light, improvised, and essential for understanding where the enemy was putting its boots. BA-10, one of the most common armored cars at the start of the war. It looked sturdy, but its truck-based chassis struggled on soft ground. It got stuck where tanks rolled through laughing. Even so, its 45mm gun was respectable for 1941, making it a scout able to defend itself. BA-20, the lighter, simpler version, practically an armored car with wheels far too thin. Ideal for patrol and communication, terrible for anything else. But in 1941, the USSR used anything that could move and transmit coordinates before being destroyed. BA-64, the first Soviet armored car actually designed for reconnaissance. Small, angular, resistant to small arms fire. Finally, a vehicle that wouldn't be defeated by a bad road. It accompanied columns, coordinated advances, and watched for ambushes. FAI, pre-war armored cars that still appeared in rear area roles. Fragile and outdated, but valuable as armored messengers. A small but vital job when radios were rare. M3 Scout Car, Lend-Lease, fast, spacious, reliable. The USSR loved this vehicle. Used for command, transport, reconnaissance, the mechanical equivalent of a Swiss Army knife. Where Soviet armor was lacking, an American M3 showed up to fill the gap. These vehicles were never built for glory. They existed to see before anyone else, and on the Eastern Front, seeing first meant surviving. Lend-Lease vehicles, machines that crossed oceans wearing foreign green only to fight under red banners. Not always loved, but necessary. And sometimes exceptional. M3 Lee, a strange tank by Soviet standards, 2 main guns, a tall profile, limited mobility. On paper, it looked like a dinosaur. On the battlefield, it was an emergency solution. Its 75mm Sponson gun was vital in 1942 when the USSR simply didn't have enough of its own mobile artillery. M4 Sherman, the surprising favorite. Soviets nicknamed it Mcha because of the way M4 sounded in Russian. Comfortable, reliable, easy to drive, and equipped with a spacious turret that commanders loved. Its armor was inferior to the T-34s, but its superior ergonomics increased crew efficiency. It became an unexpected symbol of mechanical stability. Valentine MK3, one of the most respected tanks among Soviet crews. Slow, yes, but extremely reliable, with a low silhouette ideal for ambushes. It endured the most critical phases of the war, especially in 1941-42, when the Red Army desperately needed any armored vehicle that actually worked. Matilda II, thick armor, turtle-like mobility, but in 1941 its armor was nearly invulnerable to the most common German anti-tank guns. It served well early on, but its sluggish speed made it a poor fit for the mobile warfare of the Eastern Front. Churchill III, few in number but respected. Excellent armor, strong performance on difficult terrain, especially snow and mud. Not fast, not elegant, but its resilience made it perfect for frontal breakthrough attacks. These tanks arrived as temporary guests, but fought like veterans. The Soviet war effort wasn't won only by what the USSR built, but also by what it received, adapted, and reinvented. Military trucks, the machines no one glorifies, yet without them no tank would advance a single mile. In the USSR, they were as vital as ammunition. Z's IS-5, the Soviet workhorse. Simple, rough, almost agricultural, but reliable. It carried everything: ammunition, wounded soldiers, troops, supplies, spare parts. It could be built in improvised factories, sometimes with wood replacing metal. Wherever the war tightened, a ZIS-5 appeared, and it kept going. GAZAA, the 1-ton, small, noisy, tireless. Used for light duties, rear area patrols, squad transport, and even as an improvised machine gun platform. It was the truck that showed up in every photograph on every front, discreet but everywhere. Studebaker US-6, Lend-Lease. The crown jewel of Soviet logistics. Stable, powerful, dependable. Soviets loved this truck so much they used it for nearly everything. Katyusha rocket launchers, Studebaker. Fuel transport, Studebaker. Rapid advances in 1944, packed with Studebakers, an American machine that became Soviet muscle. Dodge WC series Lend-Lease. Smaller, versatile vehicles, perfect for communications and mobile units. Far more sophisticated than their Soviet counterparts, often used by commanders and reconnaissance teams. War isn't won on the firing line alone, it's won on the road to it. And these trucks paved every Soviet advance with fuel, spare parts, and mechanical hope. These were the machines that carved the path to Berlin. If you want to stay on the front line of military history, your subscription is the ammunition we need. Smash that like button, tell us which of these steel beasts is your favorite, and I'll see you on the next front.